So, flipping the classroom. Flipping the classroom is a new method that we can use in our teaching and learning process to personalise the learning, or give us, as teachers, more personal and individual time with the students in the classroom. So the traditional way of teaching is that you have a class of students and you stand at the front of those class of students and you teach them something. It can be theory, it can be practical, but you teach a class of students in a classroom environment. What you'll then do to consolidate that learning and to check that they've understood that learning is to set them homework tasks. So it might be exam questions that they go home and they answer, or they attempt to answer. The flipping the classroom method is actually taking that process and reversing it. So what you do is you actually give the students the theory at home to watch and learn from, and then when they come into the classroom you give them the questions for them to answer about it. So the consolidating of the learning is actually happening in the classroom and the theory is happening at home. The way that that's done is through using things like screencasts, so that you video yourself, just like I am doing now. You video yourself doing whatever it is on the computer, or doing what you tend to do normally in front of the class, like this, and present. They will then watch that at home, they'll learn the theory, and then they'll come back into the classroom and do the questions.
Well, flipping the classrooms where you make videos on the lesson, the topics, and you give it to us so we can watch it at home and learn from it. Then we come to school during the lessons and we ask questions, we have a discussion about the topic.
Flipping the classroom is when the students learn the theory at home, and then when they come to school and they have a lesson with the teacher, they can ask the teacher questions that they might be unsure of during the theory that they went through.
Okay, let me explain the traditional way. Basically, the traditional way is when a teacher tells you like what the theory is in class, and he gives you questions to do at home. Flipping the classroom is basically learning about the theory at home and doing the homework in the class. That's the
Like if a student misses a classroom session, you can always visit the video and he could recap over what we have done in the classroom, so he's at par with the rest of the class.
Benefits are you can go through the theory at your own pace.
Well, there's some really good things about flipping the classroom is because when you actually need help, you can ask the teacher. Like when you're doing homework, you don't really have that much help unless you have books, but you don't have anyone to help you.
I think it's very useful because, like, if you're struggling with the question with the homework, you won't be able to really ask anyone. You can like search on the web, but you won't, like, teachers better to ask, so it'll be much more beneficial to the student. And plus, instead of like wasting all your time trying to find out an answer for this specific question, your teacher can give it in a matter of minutes, and that's it.
The benefits of flipping the classroom are that if you give the students the questions to consolidate the learning and expect them to take them home to complete, if they come across question 1 of the 10 that you've asked and they're stuck, then who can they ask for help? Their parents might not be physicists. Their friends and family at home might not be mathematicians. So who can they go to find out the answers to these questions? Whereas if we use flipping the classroom, we can bring those questions into the classroom and the teacher can have more time with the students to actually sit with them and answer or help answer those questions. Some of the other benefits of this are that, for example, if you're in a classroom environment and you're doing the theory, and a particular student is struggling with some aspect of the theory, then the other 5 or 6 students that you've got in the class might not be struggling with that theory. And so you've got to take time out of the lesson to go over that concept again and again until that one student understands it. And in that time, you've disrupted the learning of the other 6 students, and you've taken time out of your lesson to focus on that one student. By flipping the classroom, the student can look at the theory whilst they're at home, write down a set of questions that they need to ask because they're unsure about certain aspects of that theory. They can then come into the classroom, and then they can utilise you as the teacher to put up their hand and sit with you on a one-to-one basis and go over the concepts that they don't understand, and not interrupt the other students in the classroom, because they will be answering the questions that they do understand. Other benefits that I see for using flipping the classroom are the fact that it might take a long time for you to develop the screencasts or the lessons just like this, but once they're done, they're done. And so you can then use them as a revision tool later on at the end of a unit. You can give the theory lessons to an absent student, so you haven't got to worry about covering the theory again in a lesson, just because one student was away. You can also use these tools of screencasting and videos that you've created next year. So although you might have spent 3 hours creating one, you can use that again and again.
The drawbacks are like what if a student forgets to watch a video, he doesn't get the time, so then the next lesson is just wasted for him.
What happens if you haven't done the video, or you suddenly have a student absent and you can't discuss it with them? But I suppose another disadvantage would be not every student is willing to go home and watch it. They need to be sat down, and you need to be watching them so that you know that they are doing work, because some people are just not going to do it at home in their own time. Students would have to be very committed to writing down notes on that video so that they know what they were actually watching, because otherwise they won't remember. They'd have to watch the video again in the lesson, which takes up double the time to actually remember the disadvantages or what they didn't understand.
Concerns that I can see with flipping the classroom are that there's a lot of responsibility on the student, or you are putting a lot of responsibility on the student to go home and watch these videos. The core focus for me in terms of flipping the classroom is personalising the learning for individual students and catering for an individual student's needs, and having that time to actually get to know your students and sitting with them in the classroom and helping them learn, rather than having a whole class and expecting that one style of teaching that you're doing stood at the front, or even if you're doing 4 or 5 different activities that cater for different learning styles, during that one time when you're not catering for someone else's learning style, they are not learning. And so take the theory, take the practical, video yourself giving that theory and practical. Let the students cover that in their own time. They can pause the videos, they can rewind the videos, they can listen again and again to certain concepts that they might not have understood first time. They can write down questions if they still don't understand it, and then they can come to the lesson, and it might be one student out of 20 that has a question about the theory they didn't understand, and you can spend time with that one student whilst the others are still contextualising their learning and consolidating their learning through the questions and answers that you would tend to set through homework.